Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Carolinas Weather Group. We are excited that you have been able to join us tonight. We have a full panel on and three guests with us tonight. We're going to be talking about storm chasing and how they interact with the National Weather Service and local media. So we have the heart of the action, the Oklahoma City area. We have Mr. Gary England, the former chief meteorologist at News 9 in Oklahoma City. Gary's been on our show a few times, so glad to have him back. We also have Rick Smith on, who is the warning coordinator meteorologist at the National Weather Service in Norman, Oklahoma. Rick's been on our show a time or two as well, so glad to have Rick with us tonight. And we also have Doug Kiesling on. He is with stormchasingvideos.com, and he is our first-time guest, so we'll let Doug kind of introduce himself here in just a little bit. Before we do that, so we'll kind of do some housekeeping rules, and then I'll turn it over to Ricky so we can start the interview process. But this is a live broadcast. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to give them to us on Twitter or Facebook or the Google Plus pages. We'll be able to monitor those throughout the show and answer those questions. If you have any to hand out to our guests, you can also download this on your favorite podcast. Just go to your Google Play Store, your Apple Store, iTunes Store, and you'll be able to download this in the next day or so. I think that's about it for the housekeeping stuff. I think we've covered everything. It's been a wet day here in the Carolinas, a lot of flooding taking place, a few tornadoes in South Carolina and Georgia. Maybe we can talk about that towards the end of the show. I know Shay was close to at least one of them, so he can kind of give us the scoop on what's happened down in the Savannah, Georgia area, and maybe Columbia with their tornadoes. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Ricky and let him go ahead and start the interview. We have a great panel guest here tonight, so I know it's going to be an awesome show. Ricky, over to you.
All righty. Thank you very much, Scotty. Yeah, it's hard to believe we've collected this amount of weather knowledge and professionals and everyone on here. This is an amazing panel as I stare at my laptop screen with Gary, Rick, and Doug. Doug, I wanted to start with you because you're our first timer here. I want you to introduce yourself a little bit, and then we'll segue into a few questions.
All right. My name is Doug Kiesling, and I run a company called Stormchasingvideo.com. We're based out of Minnesota, but we got people all over the place. We've been doing this since 2000. When we started this up originally with Rory Groves of Swift Weather Defender now, and he went off to do his software thing. I took over the video biz, and we've just been growing exponentially ever since, just covering all kinds of crazy weather. And so I cover a lot of stuff up here in the Midwest and upper Midwest, and that'll be taming down just a little bit here in the next few weeks as we got our first little one on the way. So we're kind of excited about that. But basically, I've been chasing since high school, and that was 30 years ago. So I try to stay out of the spotlight. I don't want to sit there and scream and get obnoxious while chasing. I just go out there to chase because and honestly, you get some people who say they want to chase to save lives. No, I'm a weather junkie. I want to go out and see nature's fury. I want to see what people see on TV, but I want to see it in person. And we've just made it a way to be able to make a living at it. So, the media itself up here is a lot different than down south. Up here, they mainly deal with viewer video versus down south with chasers. So, you really gotta be on your game up here if you're going to try and do the chasing stuff, even as a part-time hobby.
Well, first off, congratulations on the upcoming child.
Thank you. I'm excited. We already got the name picked out, Laura Catherine, and she's due any day now. So I'll be chasing diapers here this spring.
But you mentioned you're a little bit further north than most folks who end up chasing Tornado Alley, all the way up in that strange place known as Canada?
Nah, we're on the border of Canada. If I go a little bit too far north, my phone starts roaming, saying, do you want Canadian networks or do you want U.S. networks? But honestly, Minnesota is kind of one of the little hidden gems. It's not really hidden much anymore. A lot of people have figured it out that, you get crazy winter, you get crazy summer, and when you get lucky, you can go out and watch the auroras too, and just see some crazy lights in the sky. So you can live it down south or California or someplace where they get 1 or 2 seasons. But up here, we got like 8 different seasons. So, as being a weather junkie and a weather nerd, you know, we have a variety of weather up here. You'll never get bored with it.
Talk a little bit, Doug, and then we'll bring Rick into this. Talk a little bit about how reports are relayed now. We've got Spotter Network, we've got phones, we've got social media. Talk a bit about, even in just the past, say, 5 years, storm spotting and storm chasing has kind of changed in the way information is disseminated.
Yeah, with the way Spotter Network has really just completely changed the game for everything, and you're almost at, you know, I like to bring up Moore's law, and you know, the computer power will be basically double every 6 months, and you have the amount of people going out there who see chasing on TV and they read about chasing on the internet, and you know, 15 years ago, WX Chase email group was pretty much the only way you could, you know, communicate with other chasers, or Storm Track online, and even their forums. But now it's so easy for anybody to go out there, sign up, you know, take the Spotter Network courses, and go and, you know, submit a report. You don't know if their reports are valid or not. I basically have given up, you know, giving out Spotter Network reports, and decided to just call in to whatever local weather service office. And doing that is almost just playing, you know, roulette. You might get somebody there who knows who you are, or who, you know, has heard of you, and then they'll take your report. I've had problems where I've called stuff in, you know, we've had it, you know, documented on video what we've had, and they just blow it off, and I'm just like, it just gets to the point where you get to just let the public report it, and they see it on social media that way, then, you know, I'm just going to continue on shooting video and chasing the storm. It's, for a lot of chasers, they just don't care, at least the ones I know, they don't really care too much about reporting anymore, just due to the fact that there's so many people out there doing the reports and feeding in information, sending stuff off to their local media, sending stuff to Twitter, to Facebook, you know, putting it on Instagram. The amount of data out there has just become overloaded to the point where it almost becomes noise.
And Rick, you know, as Doug mentioned, there are multiple ways to get reports to you guys, and even to Gary in the past when he used to work at some of our media stations. Talk a bit about how the reports come in, because I have an NWS chat account, and I noticed the Spotter Network reports popping up in there. Are those just straight from the network, and then are they vetted through that?
No, the Spotter Network reports are unvetted. They just come directly from Spotter Network into our computer system and into NWS chat. We also get an alert on our computers, our AWIPS computer system in the office when we get one of those, but it pops up immediately in chat, and there's language in those reports, and we changed the language recently. I forgot what it used to say. Now it says, I forget, unconfirmed, not for media release, or something like that, because these are raw reports, and Spotter Network, I think, is one of the best ways to get information to us for a variety of reasons. It's a written document. It's a written log of what happened. It's time-stamped, and if there's an event where maybe you're reporting quarter-size hail and we're dealing with tornadoes everywhere, you know, we may lose that report on a Post-it note sticking somewhere in the, you know, on a desk in the office during all of that, but that report in Spotter Network, we have a log of chat every day, and we can go back and find that. So, but when that report pops up in chat, we've seen numerous instances just in our CWA where the media, the Weather Channel, or somebody will pick that up and run with it just like it's the gospel truth. And a lot of times, it's a really good report. But occasionally, there's some that aren't as good for whatever reason, and then so that the note that's in NWS chat that says this is not for media release is an effort to kind of keep that from going too far. This is still an unconfirmed report. You're actually getting to see behind the curtain with things like that. I mean, used to it would be the amateur radio or the telephone or something we would see on television, and then we would have time internally to look at that and say, well, this doesn't make sense with radar, or I think this is what they're seeing, and it's not really a tornado, or whatever the case is. Now, you're seeing it when we see it.
It certainly has become more of a almost everyone involved system, with the information being disseminated, you know, not in LSRs or local storm reports, just almost immediately to the end user. Gary, let's bring you in here, and let's think back a little bit to, I don't want to age you. How many when you several years ago, all right? And so, what were some of the ways in the past, before social media took off, before even maybe we had email taken off, that we got reports into your TV station? Was it people stopping by and dropping off some video, or mainly just stuff that you guys shot?
Well, it's been the full spectrum. When I first started, there were no spotter networks. Very quickly after I went to work there, the ham radio guys came out and said, "Hey, we'd like to spot on storms." And so what we did, we took central Oklahoma, we boxed it off into 1 mile squares and alpha, beta, and then numerical. And a guy could say, and we train them, and they're good, they're sharp people. And for example, the guy calls in, he says on his radio, "I'm at Alpha 22, I have a condition 6 on the ground moving northeast, very close to my location." We knew where he is, and we had a tornado on the ground moving at 30 miles an hour. So went through that, and that lasted a while, but there was this sudden demand, probably from management, got to have more video. So and as the ham radio guys got a little bit older, they weren't sure they wanted to go out there and sit on beta 32 for several hours. So fewer and fewer of those went out. We went through a process of sending everyone out of the station that could drive a car and aim a camera. And I don't care whether they were an engineer or whether it was a guy in marketing. We just put them out to try to find a tornado. And that worked fairly well sometimes, and we had some of our own storm chasers at that time. And to answer someone's question there, was that when the night was over, what would happen? Everybody, if we had people, the Texas Panhandle, they'd all drive in. The goal was to get there back to the station before 10 o'clock, so we could edit that video and get it on. And I don't remember the exact year, whatever it was. I got it written down somewhere. We experimented with the Mac when it first came out. I'm not sure that's what it was called, and a bunch of telephones. And they drove that engineering truck out to Clinton, Oklahoma, and shot back color video. And at the time, it didn't even hit us how great that was. But they shot that back, and they came back to the station. We're all kind of going, "Well, it was really good." And we kind of let it slide there for a little while. But as time went on with the ham radio operators and sending all of our people out, and then we began to hire a few storm chasers. And for years, even the 99 tornado and before, people brought video in or film in, so much we couldn't deal with it. There were just so many people coming to the television station all times, day or night, and we appreciated their efforts, but we didn't have time. But so that progressed. We hired our own storm chasers, put our own networks in as far as communications and sending the video back. And as you all know, in many areas, it's very efficient and somewhat accurate most of the time, and it works pretty well today. The thing where I use storm chasers, there are, I guess it was Doug was saying, he just wants to get out and see it for himself. And a lot of people are that way. And when we had our storm chasers out, and we usually had 7, 8 teams, something like that, 2 people each. And I do this today. I go to the website so I can watch all the other storm chasers and see where they're going and see what they see. And it gives you a really broad look at what's going on. And I think one of the problems that does come up is for someone that is reporting in, they're too excited. The people are frightened anyway. They don't need to be frightened anymore. Let me tell you, let me say it this way: the science has come to a point that you're pretty darn accurate. National Weather Service makes our job easy here. There's no need, especially on middle-sized and large tornadoes, to panic and scream and holler, because as we know now, and Rick can tell us this, we know basically where it is, we know where it's going, and we know pretty well what time it's going to get there, and have a pretty good idea what it's going to do to the folks when it does get there. So if the more of the people in the field that do broadcast that get a little excited if they calm that down. But it looks like to me, from what I see, looking at the website, there are so many storm chasers. There's just all kinds of storm chasers. There's business storm chasers. There's one for their own interest. There's some science out there, all kinds. And I bet it's a small percentage that actually call in. As far as the reports, I did a test one time at night. Not much was going on, one little storm, and I told the guys, I said, "You watch this." And I was on the air, blah, blah, blah. And I said, "We've had a report of golf ball size hail north of Guthrie. Nothing valid, we just had that report come in." And I turned to him after I did that cut in. And I told the guys, you watch. And sure enough, the phone rang. And someone, and also the radio lit up too. That someone also had seen that golf ball size hail. So is that power of suggestion? It's really weird. I got hooked early on. A guy called me from Clinton one time, from Chickasha, and said, we have baseball size hail. Well, the storm had just passed there, and I thought, well, maybe he is right, you know? And so I went on and talked about it, and of course, he put one over on me. So it's been a fascinating, I wish I'd kept better notes. I got a lot of notes, but it's been a fascinating trip, and just how that's all progressed from just a single person, not talking to anyone. And let me tell you a quick story. When GPS came along, right before that, we'd send storm chasers out in the station, and we couldn't find them because we always said, when you get out of radio range, you call us. And they wouldn't call. So I went on the air one time. I said, listen, we have some storm chasers, and it was a bad day out just west of Woodward in the afternoon. I said, we have some storm chasers out at Woodward, and I can't find them. So if you see them, tell them to call me. Sure enough, phone rang. This guy says, Gary, those storm chasers of yours are across someone's heard this story before, or also across the street at a flea market. So I've been through it all. It's kind of herding chickens. Someone mentioned a few minutes ago. It's kind of what it's like sometimes.
Herding cats.
You do great things, and couldn't do without them now.
Gary, I want to ask you because it's normally in the Midwest that we see this, but actual TV stations, you guys now have your own chase teams. I know all the stations in Oklahoma City do, and I believe Tulsa as well. Talk about how that came along, how TV stations started hiring their own chase teams.
Well, it's kind of like Doug getting out there to report the biggest storm in the world. He's out there to do what he wants to do, and that's great. It's kind of like in television. The reason that they're out there is not because necessarily the tornadoes, it's because of the competition, that drive to be number one, have the most ratings, earn the most money, that type of thing. So it's interesting. I think the guys and gals that go out are interested in saving lives, the ones that work for us. But the motivation in television all around the country, of course, is making a profit, and that's kind of how you stay alive, I guess.
Rick, I want to ask you a question here, because we've seen over the past couple of years, especially with social media taking more and more of a role in the warning process, more pictures of rain-wrapped tornadoes and, quote, rain-wrapped wedges and stuff like that. How difficult has it been for you guys to verify those reports and honestly take them seriously sometimes when you can't really see what it is, or you get reports of large tornadoes for almost every tornado, it seems now?
It's kind of a two-edged sword, like Gary was talking about. There's so many more people out there now. It used to be, and Gary can attest to this. It used to be back in the day. It was a big deal to get a picture of a tornado or a video of a tornado, even here in Oklahoma. Now it's weird if you don't have a picture or video. If we got a tornado report and there's no picture or video, we're like, really? So it's unusual. But even sometimes when you get the picture and the video, it's not conclusive. And what we run into sometimes is not through anything malicious or not through anything bad or trying to pull one over on us. Some chasers are really passionate, and some chasers really obviously are out there to see a tornado, and they want to see a tornado. And so sometimes they see things in the pictures and the video that we don't. I mean, well, let's look. It's obvious. It's right there. It's a wedge. And I don't see it. Well, turn the contrast down and brighten it. Turn the screen sideways and squint. And if we have to go to that much work, then it's got to be, there has to be some proof there that it was a tornado. So we'll look at anything and try to determine. But it is difficult, and especially people who aren't trained. Like Doug mentioned earlier, I mean, there are so many people posting pictures and video now. Some of it is really good, some of it is not. And we kind of know that chasers, for the most part, are going to know where they're supposed to be safe, and they're going to maybe tell us which direction they're looking, and they're going to be at an angle where it would optimize the viewing of a tornado or anything that was in there. But the normal person is just taking a picture wherever. So it's good because we're getting so much more information. But sometimes it's like you're getting all this evidence in, and it's like CSI. You're trying to piece it all together. Does it make sense? Is it a rain shaft? Is it just low cloud bases? Is it a wall cloud dragging the ground? Are we looking over the horizon and it's kind of a field, a optical illusion type of thing. It's, you know, we do some serious triangulation and piecing all this stuff together when we get those situations.
Doug, how much do you think people who report stuff nowadays, since you know it's so easy to take a test and get on a spotter network sometimes, how much do you think people who report a lot of these storms have experience versus maybe a little less experience?
Well, it's kind of hard to say, and I'm going to say they don't have a lot of experience, but when you look at hail coming down, you know, one of the things that I keep thinking back when Gary was talking about getting in viewer video and getting had was a shot that one TV station down south ran, and someone sent in their photo of their hail, and it was obvious ice cubes from their, you know, the freezer. Look at me, I got hail out here. You know, it all depends, like what Rick was saying, is can you see it? Can you verify it? One of the things that's actually going to be something that helps out for spotters and chasing in the National Weather Service and the media is when you have a live stream going. Obviously, you can see, hey, there's a little tornado out there. But you know, the biggest thing out there for, you know, the media and Weather Service is just people using something like this and just tweeting the stuff out, and they can sit there and go, hey, we have a report here, and this doesn't look like it. You know, this looks like a shelf cloud where someone's saying they see a wedge. So, you know, it all depends on who wants to be on Spotter Network, because there's people out there who, I guess I'll probably insult a few people, but there's some loners out there who want to be, you know, followed and recognized, okay? And so I've seen this a lot in chasing. You get people out there, they deck out their cars like a cop car, they go out there trying to, you know, we're certified spotter, super spotter, whatever, and you know, you're just out here to see the weather like everybody else. Some people who are like Ben McMillan is one of our chasers. He's an EMT. He's trained for, you know, to go out there. Or like Randy Denzer, or I call him General Denzer because he just got promoted down in Austin. You know, he's a firefighter, and he was one of the first people to agree to say, hey, if you're not trained to go give CPR or, you know, stick your finger in an artery and stop the bleeding or whatnot, you might do more harm than good. And some of these people who get on Spotter Network who don't know what they're really looking at and take a 10, 15-minute long test, they might do more harm than good by making people panic and saying, hey, I see a tornado here. Weather Service, you know, puts out possible tornado, and then next thing nothing happens, and it gets more desensitized. And it goes back to the little saying I like to say, you know, for just in weather in general, is watch out for the warning. If there's a severe thunderstorm, watch out. Keep your head, you know, watch out if there's going to be a warning. Tornado, watch out if there's going to be a warning. But, you know, the whole Spotter Network thing, personally, I think it needs to be revamped to be more, you know, a little more, you know, how can you say, governed to see who's giving the reports, and if they turn out to be bogus reports, you know, start, you know, tracking IP addresses, you know, and making sure these people don't sit there and keep reporting bogus info. I heard, you know, I think it was Rick was talking on the live feed from Chasercon about, you know, going after people. You know, it's a federal offense to give, you know, bogus information to the federal offices.
Hey, Doug, I got a question for you. I'm going to backtrack just a little bit and tune in to some of our viewers here that probably going to be wondering the question. The big question here is, why are you a chaser? What got you into it? What sort of events happened maybe when you were younger? A lot of us study weather because
I've always loved weather. I mean, I remember as a little kid watching weather. I remember it was 1978 doing reports about lightning in elementary school, watching storms out the front door of my parents' house and watching the house across the street get hit by lightning, and just became fascinated with it. And just being able to go out and, you know, I'm not going to say nobody should go out and chase. If you're comfortable with it, go chase. Okay, just don't be a hindrance to other people on the roads. You know, be respectful to other chasers. If you love watching the weather, go watch it. Be safe about it. But I love watching the weather, and it's just, you want to go out and see nature's fury. You know, I have some people who get a hold of me and say, you know, I've always wanted to see the Northern Lights. How can I go see the Northern Lights? Where can I go see that? And I have people who want me to go take them out, you know, watching the Northern Lights. I don't do tours, so I just tell them to, you know, talk to some of the people in Norway or wherever to go out there and so they can guarantee I'm going to watch the stuff. But people have a fascination with weather. So, and I've always been fascinated with it since since I was 5, 6 years old.
Wow. So when you're out there on the road, I mean, you're probably up for 24 to 48 hours at a time, I'm sure, chasing some of these systems. Do you find that you have a lot of cooperation from the police and the emergency management teams that are around, and they actually they respect your area of what you're trying to do, or do you feel like sometimes like you need to stay away?
It all depends on the area, and it depends on who you're dealing with. I remember a year and a half ago, I was down in Arizona and I was covering the haboobs and the flooding when Arizona and Phoenix area had the massive flooding happen. And I was just getting B-roll, and I was walking around. I'm sitting there wearing scuba booties and basically a wetsuit, just like a shorty wetsuit. So you get in the water and stuff, and you're going to be clean, you can get cleaned up quick. But I remember I was getting back from filming. Water's basically up to the front doors of these people's houses, and this guy's just arguing with this police officer. Why can't I drive down there? Why can't I drive down there? He's like, my house is down there. And finally, this guy was just badgering this cop, and I was like, I just said, excuse me, let me. I said, because you're going to drive your big old jacked up pickup truck down there, and you're going to create a boat-like wake, and you're going to piss off all your neighbors, and they're going to come out and lynch your ass. You're not going to drive down there until the flooding is done, unless you're going to sit there and want to pay for the flood damage you're going to create to the entire 2-block stretch till you get down to your house. The guy looked at me and he's like, oh, okay. Walks away. The cop looked at me and it's like, I wish I could say that. Sometimes you're dealing with the public, and they don't know weather. They just want to get to their house, and they don't want to walk through 1.5 feet of water. But if they want to get to their house, they're going to have to walk through it, because you drive through it, you're going to create a wake. And you get the whole turnaround, don't drown. But if they know their area, obviously they're going to try and drive down 2 blocks to their house. And like yesterday, dealing with the blizzard up here, I was just tweeting some photos out. Just got a little app on my phone that says Add Watermark, and I was sending stuff off to the Minnesota State Patrol. They just were sitting there, sharing the photos that I was sitting there sending out from the road. It just kind of helps to show the public, hey, the roads are dangerous. Don't go out unless you really, really have to. And you can get other areas, like how I was at Hurricane Wilma. We ran into some people down on Marco Island who worked in law enforcement. They were cool with us, and we had other people that's like, basically, if you don't leave, we're going to arrest you. And IWAL just came through, and my chase partner Brian and I were like, screw it, we'll go back to Naples, and we're out of here. So, I mean, it could be someone in law enforcement or emergency management's having a bad day. Their house could have got just hit, or somebody else, they're having a bad day. They don't want anybody else around. And when I go out and I tell all of our crews to go out, don't try to be the story. Just be a fly on the wall. Document it and leave. So that answer it? Gary's just laughing there.
I like your style, brother, let me tell you.
It's worked. We've been doing the stuff with the locals and the national networks for 15 plus years here. So we kind of look at some of the stuff that we're working on one thing, and we see somebody else copies it like 2 or 3 days later. It's like, yeah, we must be doing something right.
I'm familiar with that deal.
Go ahead, James.
Rick, I was wondering if you had any thoughts from your perspective on what Doug was just talking about a few minutes ago about better policing or better vetting of spotters out there. Is there anything that you guys are looking for to help sure you've got the best and most accurate information coming in?
That's a tough question, and after the deal out with the Amarillo office in November, there's been a lot of discussion. There's a lot of discussion at Chasercon about, well, we need to develop a list so the Weather Service will know who the good guys are and who to trust, and I just don't think that's going to work, really. I mean, my list would be much different than Gary's would or Doug's would. I mean, we'd have some of the same names, but
Rick, I have a solution for that.
What's that?
It's called a tax-deductible donation. So you donate $25 to use Spotter Network to help pay for Spotter Network, and if you're going to start charging for it, you're going to watch the amount of people in the riffraff that are going to be using that Spotter Network die off instantly. Okay, if you have a free service, it's free. But if you're going to have to say, hey, it's a tax deductible donation, just something where it's not something insane, helps for, cover some of the costs for people who are volunteering for the stuff. But at the same time, it would probably get rid of, most of your riffraff out there trying to sit there and put out bogus information. And those who actually want to do it will actually pay to do it.
That something like that may be the answer. I know, for people that aren't familiar with Spotter Network, I'm on the board. I haven't been really active, but I mean, you have to get a username and password. Anybody can do that. You do have to take a little miniature spotter training and pass the test. It's not too difficult. You can do that without much trouble. One of the things that's done, though, is the reports are reviewed, and the quality of those reports is logged. And if someone makes consistently bad reports, then they may lose their access. That can take some time, though. It doesn't help the Weather Service or the TV stations or anybody during the event to dealing with this person that's out there. I can tell you that all the fake reports that we've gotten recently, and there's been an increase in that in Weather Service offices around the country, is not through Spotter Network. It's through the public interface on our website, and that's how the majority of those reports come in. So there is no identifying information on those reports. On Spotter Network, at least we can see the name, and we can see the location, and so it's a little bit. But we got somebody in New Jersey that's following storms around here. They've got radar. They know there's a storm there, so they're not giving us crazy off-the-wall reports like, well, I got cantaloupe-sized hail from this rain shower. No, it's a severe storm we've warned on, and the reports they're giving us are reasonable. But we look them up, and it's somebody in New Jersey that's doing it. So Spotter Network has helped get us higher quality reports, but not every report that comes through Spotter Network is it still comes down to knowing who's making the report and having trust in that. And another important element of this is we at the Weather Service in our office, I can only speak for our office, we don't issue warnings based on one piece of evidence. And I know Gary did this when he was on the air too. He's getting all kinds of information. He's got people talking in 4 ears at one time and people handing in papers, and he's looking at multiple radar elevation angles and displays and different radars, and we're doing the same thing. We're not going to issue a warning based on one report, most likely. It's going to be a preponderance of the evidence. So we are, one of the things we're looking at is, okay, does this report make sense? Who did it come from? Are there other reports around? There's a lot that goes on in the National Weather Service office and in the warning forecaster's head, and you don't have 15 minutes to go Google somebody and think about it. You got a minute or 2 minutes to make a decision.
Gary, what was the ways, through the years that you guys got reports from the Weather Service and then through your spotters? I know you mentioned ham radio took off as a while, but were the chat rooms more prevalent? I remember my friend Shelby Hayes interned with you for a while, and
she's a good one.
Behind the scenes at one time, one of the stuff, she was telling me a bit about it.
Well, pardon me. Chat rooms we never used that much. We depended, once we got past the ham radio operators and we finally got to where we had our own storm chasers that we were paying, so we had a little bit of leverage, but they're extremely independent, all you guys are. But once we got to that point, it improved. But still, and I'm sure this happens in other markets, there's a lot, just like Rick was saying, there's a lot going on. And your head's spinning, you're trying to figure out the right thing to say. And then what would happen, one of our storm chasers would call in and say, look, I see a tornado on the ground. Well, they may be right, but we'd work with them on point. Is it little? Is it big? We got to have something. You just can't say, and I'd come to him, okay, well, let's go to John, where his name is. Let's go to him and check. How's that tornado look? That dissipated. And so a lot of times I'll go on and they'll give me one of the reports. I'll say, is there a house nearby? Is it near a building at all? And you're trying to measure what you should say. How much more time do you have to really decide? Because I pretty well trust everybody we have in the field, but it's still sometimes is a mess. So it's having that video, having the stream up there. Prove to me what you have is the key.
Gary, over the years, were any of your chasers really competitive with each other, or did they kind of just get along pretty well?
I think that at times they might have been a little bit competitive. In 2013, they were really competitive and out of control. And sometimes Rick knows exactly what I'm talking about. and doing more damage to the public and more damage to the weather service and the television station than many other things in many years. You just got to have good, solid reports and good, solid people. And sometimes, as Rick is saying, determining if that person is good and is a viable report, then is not easy. And there's a lot of things going on. Yeah, they did compete with each other. I've seen on television through the years a storm chaser that works, for example, for a television station make up a storm. Because we'd have people right here, and this guy was working for another television station. He was reporting blah, blah, blah. And our guys were saying, there's no tornado there. I mean, it's just, so that happens a lot. And in that case, it was deliberate. Most usually it isn't. Most usually I think it's just a mistake.
Scott, did you have a question?
Well, go ahead if you wanted to follow up.
I just wanted to kind of segue off that because we've kind of got into video a little bit, and I wanted to ask how much the helicopter footage that we've seen over the years compared to some of the ground footage.
Well, helicopter obviously has a vantage point area that's different than everyone else's, and people really go to it. In television, we pretty well know whoever has the best video. First tier is whoever has the best helicopter video, that's who they're going to watch. And whoever has the best ground shots, they'll watch. It's kind of the way I look at severe weather. Is it's like at NASCAR, you know. Let's say you got let's say the tornado is moving directly toward Doug. Well, you know, he's really concerned about it. He wants to watch that, and he wants to know what's going on. But, you know, and everybody in front of that tornado are really concerned. There's all these ones around the edge. It's like they're walking. They're waiting for the big show. What's going to blow away and what's going to hit. And, you know, you don't need to panic the people. You just, it's just. I think back about it at times. It's just, as I think Rick will tell you, it's a nightmare to try to sort through all of that stuff. And I lost track of your original question. I kind of went off the other side there.
You pretty much covered that. I was just curious, you know, how much value you guys put into helicopter footage, perhaps, versus ground footage sometimes.
Well, you know, some of the ground footage today is so darn good. You know, so many people know exactly where to place themselves. High-quality cameras, good transmission streaming systems. So it's very valuable to the television station. The television station gets the best video, they get the higher ratings. They get to charge more for the commercials. That's the way it works. And it's just a fact that exactly how it works. But I've seen some ground video that's just about as good as the helicopter video. Drones. What about drones, Rick? Are they coming?
I think they are. I don't know about during the storm. I mean, that's coming, but I know after. I mean, we had a little wind event up in Payne County. Let's see, night before last, I think it was, when those storms came through. And I was talking to one of the emergency management people. He said, well, I've got a UAV. I'll fly it, and I'll send you some video and some pictures. So that's out there. I can tell you that Gary knows, and some of you who have toured the office know, we've got TVs on 24 hours a day, all 4 Oklahoma City TV stations. And for various reasons, but one of the reasons during severe weather is the video that they have. And whether it's the TV video, whether it's, you know, Valcaster or whoever's on the ground underneath the storm looking at it, or it's a helicopter shot, or the video streaming that other chasers are doing. Gary mentioned this earlier. You can watch all these chasers. I can't tell you how valuable that is for us, because we're still in this era where, you know, we go out and train storm spotters. We train 3,000-4,000 people a year on how to be storm spotters. To be quite honest, a lot of the people that come to the classes come to the class every year. Some people are forced to come to it. So I would much rather be able to see a video stream myself and see the storm, know what storm I'm looking at, which way I'm looking, and be able to determine myself whether that's a wall cloud, a funnel cloud, a RFD, whatever, versus having someone who slept through 75% of the training that they got 2 years ago, who's a volunteer fireman, who has a life and is busy with 50 other things, who's not as passionate about weather. So the streaming video that Chasers provide and the TV station stuff is huge. I mean, we devote people in our office during severe weather to continuously monitor what's going on, all the TV stations, and take notes. And I mean, we've actually during big events, like several that Gary's worked over recent years before he left. I mean, we're just, okay, tornado touchdown at 5:14 p.m. based on television. That's how we develop timelines and things like that. So all of that helps, but video is huge.
And Rick, our local weather service office here in Blacksburg actually did a training class on how to use drones and get them video back to determine like tornado versus straight line winds. It was really interesting to see them, going out and trying to recruit more people for that. So.
Yeah, it's. I was at an emergency management meeting not too long ago, and there was a sales rep from somebody that sells those, and the capabilities that those have for the emergency management and fire service. I mean, they can drop sensors into hazardous materials incidents to analyze the gases or whatever, the cameras, the video. They're awesome, and we've used drone footage that Chasers and others have provided to help us, fill in the blanks on damage surveys before over the past couple of years.
Doug, are you seeing? Sorry.
The drones.
Yeah, I was going to bring Doug in. I was going to say, I know you got your finger on the pulse of the Chasers out there. What's the future of drones with Chasers?
Well, if you're going to use a drone, first you need to your federal exemption, okay, to be able to actually sell the footage. Otherwise, if you just give it away, there's no harm in that. But if you're starting to make money off of it, you have to have it, you have to be registered with the FAA. And one of the things I also found that in Minnesota, if you're going to have a business with drones, I talked to Kevin Gutnick with the Department of Transportation down in St. Paul a couple weeks ago, and you also have to be registered with your state if you're going to be doing this as a business, because it goes into the aeronautical division. And I don't know of any company that's insuring the drones yet. Like if we had a DJI we were playing with a couple years ago, it was fun. And I have a pilot license, and I was sitting here just going, hey, let's play around with this and see where it goes. And the thing lost GPS track. It was on July 4th, and it took off. It probably went about half a mile away. We lost it. We thought the thing just went AWOL. It came back like a Scud missile and hit a tree by our neighbor's house. It came just half a foot from missing the tree and going through her picture window. And how am I going to sit here and explain this? My fiance is looking at me and going, don't get another one of these things. So they have their use. And for most chasers, I don't think you're going to go out and buy the $3,000 to $5,000 DJI or the Inspire or one of those, the insanely expensive drones. And most chasers I know of are cheap. They'll build their own Giotto desk for their freaking vehicles in some cases. They'll make their own little rigs in their vehicles for stuff versus going out and spending the money to buy it and do it right the first time. So you have these drones going out there. For the media, you need to be certified, or not certified, you need the exemptions from the FAA. You're going to have the paperwork with your state and local. You're going to have to make sure you don't violate any, privacy laws. So, you can go out there on the drones, but there's a guy, I don't know his name, he's down, I think it was Arkansas. The FAA went after him. I don't know what the final conclusion on that one was, but it's just, I see it as a headache. And yes, for showing, hey, what happened here, it's great. Business side of it, it's the jury's still out on that one.
All right, well, I'm going to kind of transition into, we've got about 15 minutes left for the show, and we're entering the February time frame. And I know in Oklahoma, weather can be happening at any month of the year, but right now, kind of the calm season, this is for all three of you guys. Do you kind of prepare before severe weather season and talk with your spotters? And Gary, talk with your TV spotters and your meteorologist, and Rick, you guys talk in the office. Do you kind of get together and have a plan as you approach severe weather season about the spotter network and getting reports in and how we're going to deal with those reports as they come in throughout the severe weather season? And I'll start with Gary.
Well, when I was there, I can't speak for the last year and a half or so. When I was there, we met more than once per year with everyone. We had a dinner at one time. We have them every year, per year. But you meet, and that's just a fun time. You just have a good time with it, get to know everybody a little bit better. But yeah, there's a plan. And but I through the years, I had written what ended up being a pretty good document on how you do it, where you do it, when you do it, and how you report. And and maybe a little bit strict for some storm chasers that came along that wanted to work for us. But in our business, you have to have some degree of control. You can't have them at the flea market, okay? And so we train them. Most of these guys know as much as we know as far as spotting storms, and they know more in many, many cases. And you know, so often they don't have to be a meteorologist to be out there and chase and be a good storm chaser. Some of the best I've ever seen are guys that never went to college, or they got a degree in English and they're great at doing it. But we train, we work, we plan. You know, the day or two before, you know, we have that pre-planning meeting, which changes as time goes along. So it's very methodical. I was in the Navy, so it's pretty methodical, pretty strict in some areas, but it was a good guide on what to do. Of course, sometimes those guys get out there to do their own thing anyway. But so it was pretty rigid. We trained, we worked at it, and did a pretty good job.
Rick, what about you guys at the National Weather Service?
Yeah, we're definitely gearing up. We've been gearing up for spring, it seems like, before winter started. It's something that sometimes it feels like, you know, it's barreling toward us like a freight train. You see a light at the end of the tunnel, but it's a train coming at you, and that's spring, and that's how it feels. One of the things we're doing with spotters is we do storm spotter training sessions. We do a combination of live classes where we go travel around and visit communities and do the training there, and we also start doing a lot of online training. So we've had over 1,100 people on a webinar before for spotter training in our area. So it's just to get people refreshed. Some people have sat through this thing more times than I've taught it. They could teach it themselves, but it's just something you do. We're also getting ready in the office. You know, Gary talked about having internal meetings with their folks. We do the same thing. We're already having, you know, we've already had a series of meetings in the office talking about, you know, what did we learn from last year, what's new this year, what's different. We're doing organizing drills, for example, for the staff, for all the forecasters on some social media issues, some you know, different warning scenarios and things like that. So there's a lot of ramp up, a lot of training. You know, we're kind of like, you know, firemen, emergency services. You know, we're either working an event, we're learning from an event, or we're getting ready for the next event. It's just a continuous cycle, and this period leading up to spring, we can get severe weather any time, but this period leading up to spring is pretty intense, and you know, anything can happen.
And Rick, one thing, I work with emergency management here in a couple of our counties doing their meteorology and forecasting. Do you guys work with those? I mean, I know you do the spotter training sessions, but do you have specific classes or specific meetings that you have with those guys?
Yeah, we are constantly interacting too with the emergency services personnel, the emergency managers, fire, public safety, different agencies across the area. That's a continuous thing all through the year. So we're attending their meetings. We also do special training for them and our partners on, you know, how to use NWS chat, how we'll use NWS chat during severe weather, and things like that. So there's a lot of interaction going on. That's a continuous thing that goes on in most weather service offices.
Yeah, I know with those guys, they're always looking to have any advantage they can during the severe weather season. Yep. And then, Doug, with you guys, how much do you guys go into planning as severe weather season kind of creeps around the corner?
It goes every day is a severe weather day. I mean, we could have 1 week like last week where Simon's out on the East Coast. Simon Brewer, he's out just going crazy. We don't really plan per season. It's just, hey, what's the next news story? What's the next big thing happening? We actually plan for when there's a downtime so we can upgrade, clean stuff, fix stuff, and who busted what camera, who needs to get stuff taken care of, and review everything at our end for paperwork and whatnot. So there's really no what are we going to do for chase season. I mean, we have a few tricks up our sleeve we're going to be doing for this year for chase season, but it's more or less on the scientific and research side. I know Ben McNeil and Tony are trying to revive some of the stuff from TwistX. So we're going to see if they can get out there and do some stuff this season.
Doug, that also I have a question for you on that. Now I see that you were pretty heavily involved with hurricane
Yep.
chasing from 2003 to 2008. You have a very
Got a
extensive.
wicked echo here.
Yeah. I hear that.
Gary, get a little bit back to that mic there. Mute that for a moment, then bring you back in. There you go. Good job.
Okay.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
About hurricanes?
All right. Yes. You have quite an extensive profile for channels around the world, Nat Geo, Weather Channel, and you've been followed by many for some of your hurricane chases and just some of your material worldwide. I mean, from Japan to China to Americas and beyond. So, are you still involved with hurricane chasing, or do
There
you
just
still-
hasn't really been much to cover. I mean, when's the last time a hurricane actually hit Florida? It's been a decade. You got some just minor tropical storms that have been, impacting, but there really hasn't been anything major since Sandy, and that was one of the ones that I chose not to chase just due to the logistics of going into New York City and dealing with everything out there, and knowing that, hey, you have CNN, ABC, NBC, Weather Channel with NBC. Everybody is already based out of New York, so you have everybody sitting there, talking with Lisa at Inside Edition. They're sitting there going, yeah, we'll film it right off our deck at home, cover a story. So that was like the only reason I didn't go out there is it was overly saturated. But as far as hurricanes hitting, we're still waiting for something to hit. So last year and a half ago, with the storms that actually went up into Arizona for like the flooding and the haboobs and everything, actually went down there because all the hurricanes were coming up to Baja and impacting Arizona. So that's the closest you can actually get to some decent hurricane type weather coming in. But generally, it's just been boring for the hurricane chasing.
Understood. Yeah, I was watching Bill last year, where it had some of the brown ocean effects and some of the thunderstorm lines and convections associated with that storm, and it's fairly interesting. And I figured a lot of tracers would be following that storm up through the mid, up towards the Mid-Atlantic at least, from the Midwest to the Mid-Atlantic.
Yeah, and it's one of the things people sit there and say, I don't go out and chase. I get kind of selective. When you're a new chaser, you want to go out and chase everything, and then after a while, you just kind of get selective, going, you're better at forecasting. You go like, that one's going to suck, or that storm's going to come in at night, or this one is really not going to be worth my time to go out and do it, or am I going to be able to see anything with it? So it comes with age, more knowledge with the forecasting, and do you want to go out there and do it or not?
James, I think you had a quick question for Rick here as we approach 9.
Yeah, Rick, we're coming up 9 o'clock, but before we let you guys go, I wanted to ask you, is there a particular value that you've seen in your office or in your experience where spotters are especially important? I ask this because where I am in Charlotte, we're in a bit of a blind spot when it comes to radar between all the offices in our area. Is that something you guys have run into where those guys on the ground are extra important?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, there are, and with any radar, the further away you get from it, the higher up you're looking. So, we've got areas within our county warning area where the radar beam is thousands and thousands of feet above the surface. The radar can't tell you what's going on. We say that in every spotter class, but it's not. It's true. I mean, it is legit, and there is no radar technology now or in the near future that's going to overcome the fact that the Earth curves, unfortunately. So. Yes, definitely. And we had an incident last Memorial Day down in southeast Oklahoma where we had tornadoes moving out of North Texas into the Bryan County area, way down there near Durant, or Durant, however the locals say it. And that's how we knew what was going on. Radar gave us some indications, but it was the spotters. We were listening to spotters actually on the website, and they were giving us reports. So it was.
All right.
Hey, we need to get Gary England up here to Charlotte. We've been battling a thing here with radar coverage where the Charlotte Metro, James, correct me if I'm wrong, maybe 1.1, 1.2 million people now living in the Charlotte area that does not have adequate radar coverage. And that has become a big problem for our area. So we need to get you and Rick up here to lobby our government to get us a radar.
Yeah, that can be a problem. Back on what Rick was saying just for a second about the curvature of the Earth, you go out to Woodward, Oklahoma, where they're way out, 90, 100 miles, whatever it is, They don't, and you meet with the people of the town, you go through a storm meeting with them. They don't like to hear that radar beam is way up there. You ever have that, Rick? They don't like it. They don't like it at all.
They do not.
As far as your lack of radar back there, you know, the public would have to demand it. You have to get the public involved. You have to make it a weather market, one where, you know, people want to know about the weather all the time, and eventually the equipment will come along. And now a television station could do that if they would, but for them it has to be profitable to do that, and everything's pretty expensive nowadays.
Yeah.
All right, Gary, we're getting close to 9, but I can't let you go without hearing a few Gary England classic stories here. So I want to hear the best Gary England Stormchaser story of the year.
Oh, God. You know, if you were Chasercon or watched the streaming, you probably heard about everything I had to say. I think probably one of the best, and I've only told it once before publicly. A guy called me up, you know, because everybody wanted to chase for us. I mean, everybody wanted, it seemed like. The phone was always ringing. Well, one day a preacher called me up, and he's a nice young guy, and so we trained him, you know, limited training. You know, he had a camera, and we gave him a phone, and he did some good stuff. He shot some good stuff, and then one day, one week, it looked like some pretty bad storms, and everybody's pumped. We're going to get it covered. We're going to get people out there, and his car was broken down. And so he went to we went to a new car dealer and got himself a test drive in this new fancy car. And the best way to explain how it turned out, about 3 days later, he was in Texas, still chasing tornadoes and still in that stolen car. And that's when he got put in the county jail down there. That was one of the more unusual ones. Never heard from him again.
Yep, that's what I was looking for right there. One of those stories.
You know, it's like Rick said. It's all my life I've been herding chickens, man. You herd pig. You know, you ever try to herd a pig? I used to raise pigs when I was on the farm. They run at a 90-degree angle from where you want them to go, and that's kind of the way some of our storm chasers work.
It's kind of what Joey does too when you chase after him.
Yeah, Chase, he's his own man there. Where do you get a hat like he's got? Too twisted.
Got that from my buddy's website, chasersedge.com. He sells them up there.
Okay. Good looking.
So, yeah, it's got the tornado on the front.
Yeah.
Twisted on the back. So, yeah, it's my buddy Brandon Clark down in Hayes. He makes them down there, and his website's chasersedge.com.
That's a great hat for a storm chaser, let me tell you. Anybody in weather. We're all a little bit.
He's got a whole bunch of shirts and stuff too. And he has some funny shirts. So.
Okay.
All right.
Also the award for best lit guest.
All right, Jake.
What's that?
I said, does Doug also get the award for best lit guest? I think Doug did a really good job on his lighting.
I do have a little studio here at the office.
I was going to say, that looks professional.
Yeah, he does look really good there. Yep. Looks like a pro.
Yep.
So we got the equipment. Might as well use it.
That's right. Right on.
All right. All right, guys. So it's 9 o'clock.
Got those for the audio too, by the way.
Oh man.
All right. Well, we're 9 o'clock here on the East Coast, 8 o'clock out in Oklahoma. So we'll kind of start to wrap up. But Joey, I'm going to ask you: do you want to do your final question before we do the social media stuff?
Yeah. Well, I know Gary and Rick has already answered my final question a couple times they've been on, so let's let Doug answer it since I know we're already past 9 o'clock anyway. Doug, we have a lot of teachers that watch our program, a lot of students, people get into weather. We have a lot of audience like that. If you could give one piece of advice to that 10-year-old out there, or maybe even the teacher who's trying to help that 10-year-old really excel and move into a career in weather, what would be the one piece of advice you would give them?
If they're really into it, follow their dreams. And if they want to know more, I think the best thing they could do is probably pick up one of Tim Vasquez's books. And he's got some really great books. Some of them, Rick will probably look at it and his head will go, oh, it's too much math, too much science. And other of them are, they basically get down to this is how you're going to do your forecast if you're going to go out to do the chase. Just take a look at some of Vasquez's books. I think it's, I can't think of it. I can't think of his website right off the top of my head. So But yeah, just Google Tim Vasquez and look for his. He has the Storm Chaser handbook, the forecasting handbooks, stuff like that out there. But if they're really into it, encourage them. Go out there, follow the dreams. If you might make it big as a meteorologist, I know some of the people I work with, they forecast for Fortune 500 companies. Other people I know, they work for the National Weather Service. So there is an industry out there for just forecasting and outside of going out, running out, chasing and shooting video.
Doug, I definitely want to get you back on one week to really promote your company and stuff. But take just a couple quick minutes here, just kind of explain what you guys do and maybe how to get in touch with you and stuff.
Okay. Basically, it's called Stormchasingvideo.com. We started this company up back in 2000. It used to be called Breaking News Video Network. Their acronym was BNVN. We'd call the TV stations and networks, or basically call on Atlanta or New York, say, we're BNVN. They're like, what station is that? So we just changed the name to Storm Chasing Video, since that's basically mostly what we do. We might have a few crime scene stuff here and there, but we're not doing the stuff like the guys out in Hollywood do that you've probably seen on the Nightcrawler movie. But so we have, we're kind of a closed group. We bring on more people every now and then. We don't let anyone who wants to sign up with us sign up and send us video. So what I do and what Tony and a couple other people help out with is we broker the video. We watch out for rights and clearances. And to make a really long thing real short is we're pretty much like an A&R guy in the music business. We treat video like the music business. We watch out for copyrights. We watch out to make sure, if someone's going to use your footage, you're going to get paid for it. And we encourage people to go out and work with their local stations. And when it comes to like the national and international media, we sit there and we help people out so they don't get burned. So, and it helps a lot of people out, and we make sure they get paid top dollar. So I know there's a lot of people out there trying to do what we're doing, and we hear from people what's happening, and we wrote the book on doing all this stuff for the storm chasing and the video side of it. So we have fun doing it. I mean, I've been doing this for 15 years, and I hope to be doing it for another 20 or 30 years before I hang it up and let my kid take over. So she's not even born yet, but she's cursed with this one.
The heir apparent is just waiting their arrival. Definitely, if we get with Scotty and get with you, maybe we can figure out a good week to get you back on and
Okay.
really an hour to just really talk about all this stuff. Maybe you and Tony can come on or whoever. We'll do a really good chat. But Scotty, you want to finish wrapping up with Gary and Rick there?
Yeah, we'll let Rick, if you want to promote your Twitter handle and maybe Facebook, and then we'll throw it over to Gary.
Yeah, well, I'm active on Twitter when I can be. It's at OUNWCM, and follow me there. I'll kind of supplement what goes on in the official office feed during severe weather. Also, I'd encourage people, if you haven't watched the stream or the video from Chasercon that happened a couple weeks ago here in Norman, I would encourage you to go watch that. There's a ton of good information. Gary's presentation is on there, right, Gary? Yours is on the YouTube, right? So you can see his. Hear a lot more stories, and then the presentation I did on Sunday afternoon, kind of a 2-hour talk about chasers and getting along with the Weather Service, or enhancing that relationship, is something to watch too if you're interested in that kind of thing. But yeah, appreciate you having us on, and anytime. We're honored to be here.
Yeah, definitely. And you do a big show on Monday nights that if you want to promote that as well, feel free to.
Yeah, I'm thankful that you're all on Wednesday nights, or on Monday nights. We're separated by an hour here, but yeah, Monday nights at 8:30 Central. There's a little show called Weather Brains, and we have lots of good discussions. Gary's been a guest, and then if you're into weather, that's a good podcast to listen to. Watch it live at 8:30 every Monday, but it's on YouTube, iTunes, and
It is. It's a very good show. I get to watch it on one of my lunch breaks throughout the week. I eat lunch and watch what you guys do on Monday night. So I appreciate you guys kind of letting us piggyback off of you and having all of you guys on our show. It's always been an honor to kind of be mentioned up there with Weatherbrain. So we appreciate all that you guys do, Rick, and looking forward to seeing you in the next couple of weeks out at the Tornado Summit.
Yep, that's coming up March 1st and 2nd, and some good stuff coming up with that here in downtown Oklahoma City.
Yes, I'm looking forward to it. It can't come soon enough. All right, and Mr. Gary England, the man, I appreciate you coming on, Gary. I always look up to your work, and I appreciate any time you accept the invitation to come on to our show.
I appreciate that, Scotty, so beam me up.
We'll do it. We'll do it. Tell us how we can follow you on Twitter and Facebook.
Well, on Twitter, I'm Gary G-A-R-Y-E, OK, capital OK. And that's the easiest way to get it, Gary E. OK. And I'm on Facebook. But a lot of stuff on Twitter, and a lot of the stuff I do on Twitter doesn't make a lot of sense because I'm just trying to communicate with the audience out there. So, but it's a great medium. I'm on there, like I said. I got 3 Facebook pages, so you can take your choice.
Will do. And Gary, again, we'll have to get you back on. Hopefully, we can have some more weather stories. We've always enjoyed hearing those, so maybe we can get you back on soon.
Okay, appreciate you inviting me.
Yeah,
Good night,
no
all
problem.
you guys.
All right, guys. We look forward to seeing you next week as we talk again. So enjoy your weekend. Go Panthers, because we're in the Carolinas. Go Panthers, and we'll talk to you next Wednesday night.
All right, thanks, guys.